Alright, hello, let's take a look at the Blackrock Mountain cards. We'll start with the neutral cards. I'll just give you my sort of quick gut feelings on them, which may be right or wrong. I did write a legendary crafting guide before GVG came out for hearthstoneplayers.com with predictions of the GVG cards, and like everyone else I thought that Sneed's Old Shredder was going to be the bomb, and Foe Reaper 4000 was going to be the bomb, and Dr. Boom was going to be awful, and that all proved to be completely wrong. Everyone was, well, most people were foiled by that, but let's take a look at these. So, neutral cards, the last 14 cards were revealed today, 30th of March 2015. We begin with, and I haven't seen all of these by the way, I was watching the reveal stream earlier, but I didn't see all of them. But we'll begin with Draconoid Crusher. 6/6 for 6, which is nice stats. Battle Cry, if your opponent has 15 or less health, gain +3/+3. Obviously, that's a double-edged sword, because if it's a 9/9 for 6 and your opponent has BGH, well, you're very sad. Although, presumably, you'll have Dr. Boom in your deck as well, so one or the other will get through. So you could look at it that way. If people are running a single BGH, one of them will get through, but the odds of your opponent having 15 or less health on turn 6 very much depends on what kind of deck you're going to play. So this is really a mid-range card. I think it will probably be good, depending on the kind of deck it's in, but I imagine that most people will want to play it when their opponent is at 15 health, or sorry, more than 15 health, to take it out of BGH range. Volcanic Drake costs 1 less for each minion that died this turn. Well, obviously that's great with, you know, things like Swipe or Master for Battle and things like that, because you could get a 6/4 for, you know, 3/2 mana, which will be crazy. Although it'll be long after turn 2 when you get to play it, of course. 4 health, not very good. My suspicion is that by the time you can get that down to a cost of 2 or 3, you're probably on turn 4 or 5 or 6 anyway, and then 4 health is not going to be very useful. Gut feeling. Blackwing Corruptor, Battle Cry, if you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage. So this is a neutral version of Goblin Blast Mage, basically. I think that really depends what other dragons are available, which I need to look at. Again, it's kind of, you know, really weak health for a 5-drop. It's okay. It's a bit crappy, but it's basically a Goblin Blast Mage for neutral cards, for neutral, a neutral Goblin Blast Mage for dragon decks. Okay, Dragon King Sorcerer has the Magic the Gathering heroic mechanic. Whenever you target this minion with a spell, gain +1/+1. So obviously you're going to want to play this in a buff deck, so you want things like Blessing of Kings, with Paladin, and other decks that have buffs in them. I'm thinking about spare parts there as well. Probably good in a mech mage or a spare parts deck, because every time you cast a spare part on it, it'll get +1/+1. I think that's a good card. It's got nice stats for 4-drop. I quite like that one. Just depends how many spells you can throw at it. Hungry Dragon, of course, is the one that everyone's been talking about. It's a 5/6 for 4 mana, which has the Battle Cry of summoning a random 1-cost minion for opponent. And I don't know why, but everyone seems to be going on about Dust Devil as having its moment to shine. But they seem to think that it will trade evenly with Hungry Dragon, but it won't, because it's got 1 health, so it will get killed before the second Wind Fury can proc. But anyway, Hungry Dragon is a monster, and I predict that's probably going to be, if there's one card that changes the meta completely in Blackrock Mountain, it will probably be that one. Blackwing Technician, Battle Cry, if you're holding a dragon, gain +1/+1. Yeah, so you could have a 3/5 for 3, which of course is great in dragon decks. See, the problem is that they announced all the crappy cards in the last couple of weeks, and they left all the good ones for today. So up until this morning, we were all thinking, well, what dragon decks are we really going to make? There's nothing really worth playing. But that's kind of changed today somewhat. So, yeah, Blackwing Technician, lot like it's a kind of dragon version of Tinkertown Technician, I guess. So I think that could very well be a good card as well. A 3/5 for 3. I mean, that's actually better stats than Spider Tank, which is a 3/4 for 3. So actually that card will be shit hot in dragon decks. Grim Patron, whenever this minion survives damage, summon another Grim Patron. Well, this card is garbage in my opinion because it's a 3/3 for 5, same stats as Antique Healbot. How often is it going to survive 3 damage? It will trade with a 2-drop, it will trade with Frostbolt. You know, the only thing you could think of is it's good against like Fan of Knives in Rogue or Whirlwind and Warrior. So it's kind of, I guess it's kind of an anti-rogue type card. But for the most part, I would say that card sucks. Dragon Egg is very interesting. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 2/1 whelp. So you destroy it, and then your opponent has a 2/1 whelp as well. It's kind of like a 1-mana version of the Nerubian Egg in a way. Obviously, again, you'll want to play it in a deck with lots of buffs. So like the Paladin cards we were talking about earlier and so forth. Health buffs. Today was announced the craziest legendary ever. The new Dr. Boom. Well, no, it's a bit expensive because it costs 9, but Major Dormo Executus, a 9/7 for 9 mana. Death Rattle, replace your hero with Ragnaros the Firelord. Sorry, not the new Dr. Boom, the new Jiraxxus. Now, I saw this in play earlier on ESL's Hearthstone stream, and when your hero is replaced with Ragnaros, you can't have more than 8 health, as you would expect. The hero power deals 8 damage to a random enemy for 2 mana. So it's pretty nuts, but you're going to need real good control over your health with a maximum of 8 health. I think that card is going to be super fun. Whether it's going to be usable or not is questionable, but because at least Jiraxxus has 15 health. But we will see. Okay, next card on the left is Nefarian, another legendary, 9 mana, 8/8. Battlecry, add 2 random spells to your hand from your opponent's class. Now this has been talked up quite a bit. I think this card is trash. Because, let's say you're playing against a mage, right? Yes, you might get a fireball, but you could also get dozens of other spells that are complete crap. I mean, let's just take a look, right? You could get an arcane missiles, or a mirror image, or an arcane explosion. I guess those are quite good. You could get a frost nova, you could get an ice barrier, you could get a cone of cold, and you could get these. But basically you're probably going to get a bunch of shit. Same with most of the classes. So I don't rate that card at all. It's far too unpredictable and inconsistent. Plus it's an 8/8 for 9, which is pretty crummy. Chrome Magus, on the other hand, is amazeballs. 6/8 for 8. Whenever you draw a card, put another copy into your hand. Well, so you get 2 copies of everything in your deck, and it's out of BGH range. I think this is a great card. It's going to have lots of applicability. I'm really looking forward to crafting that one. I think that one is a must-have card. I say looking forward to crafting it, looking forward to unlocking it. Ren Blackhand, in my opinion, another useless legendary. 8/4 for 7, which means it's piss easy to remove. Battle Cry, if you're holding a dragon, destroy a legendary minion, so you can trade into it with a Tinkertown Technician that's buffed. You can BGH it. There's so many ways of getting rid of that, and the removal. I mean, the effect is good, but you're playing it for the effect because that body's not going to survive. It's a 7 mana BGH, in my opinion. Okay, next card. I haven't actually seen this one before. 6 mana 5/5 Emperor Thorison or Thorison. At the end of your turn, reduce the cost of cards in your hand by 1. Jesus. Let me think about that for a minute. I would say that would be brilliant in aggro decks, but then they're filled with low mana cards anyway, so I guess it's better in mid-range decks. Depends how much card draw you have as well. So you want to play that in a deck where your hand is full. Like Handlock. But I don't know if there's room in Handlock for that.
It's called Handlock.
My colleague just said, is that why it's called Handlock? Yeah, because you try and keep your hand full. Huh. So yeah, I'm not sure about that. I have to think about that. So out of the neutrals, my sort of the ones that I think are basically interesting, like if you're not playing a dragon deck, the ones that are interesting, I think are Draconoid Crusher, Dragon Skin Sorcerer, Hungry Dragon, Blackwing Technician, possibly Dragon Egg. I think Major Dom Execute, this is a bit too novelty. Chromagus is a must-have. Yeah, so I think that's it. Right, let's move on to the class cards. There's 2 of each for the 9 classes. So start with the Druid. Druid of the Flame, this one was revealed today. Choose one. It's a 2 mana, a 2/2 for 3. Transform into a 5/2 minion or a 2/5 minion. So that's a bit like the Anodized Robocub that was introduced in GVG, except that was a 2 mana taunt that could be a 3/2 or a 2/3. A 2/5 for 3 mana. I guess that means it trades twice with 2 2-drops. Or it gets Flame Cannon and pinged. I'm not sure. The 5/2 doesn't have charge. I'm not really sure what the point of a 5/2 minion is on turn 3 that doesn't have charge. But I can see the application of a 2/5 minion. Just wonder if you'd just be better off with the Spider Tank. There's 3/4, a bit more consistent. Not sure. Volcanic Lumberer. Taunt. Cost 1 less for each minion that died this turn. Well, obviously this is good if you play Swipe. If you got a really good value Swipe, I guess you could play this for, you know, 5 or something. A 7/8 taunt for 5 would be sick. But it does, of course, rely on you getting a value swipe, and that somewhat depends on your matchup, because if you're playing against another druid, you're probably not going to get a value swipe, or if you're playing against a warrior, you're probably not going to get a value swipe. So that's very meta dependent. Could be good, could be great, could be totally terrible depending on the current meta. Quick Shot is a hunter card that was revealed today. Deal 3 damage if deal 3 damage if your hand is empty, draw a card. So basically it's the same cost and damage as Dark Bomb, so it's a Dark Bomb. Nice replacement for the crappy card Arcane Shot. And if your hand is empty, draw a card. Well, that's massive, because Hunter, its only innate card draw is tracking. So that is, I reckon that card's probably going to be pretty good. I'm just thinking about the Face Hunter I use and all that. It's got a double strategy, because you can use it at the beginning for removal, and you can use it at the end to just fire off some damage to face and draw another card. 2 mana, it's nice and cheap. So yeah, I like that card. I like Quick Shot. Core Rager, 4/4 for 4. If your hand is empty, gain +3/+3. I think that card sucks. We talked about this at length on the Hearthstone Players Skype group. It's a BGH target. If your hand is empty, you're probably losing anyway. And then having a BGH target won't really help you. If your hand's not empty, 4/4 for 4 is okay, I guess. But it doesn't really fit into super aggro face, and it doesn't really fit into mid-range either, I think. Because, you know, you got Savannah Highmane is so much more value than that. So I think that card is pretty trashy. Let's look at the Mage. Dragon's Breath, a 5 mana spell. Deal 4 damage. Costs 1 less for each minion that died this turn. Yeah, so what are we going to combo that with? Ping, Flame Strike. Yeah, it can be combo with Flame Strike. Okay. If you kill a bunch of minions with Flame Strike, it could, you know, the cost could go down to 0 if you kill 5 minions. But I think that it's probably more likely to be comboed with just like pinging or frostbolt and things like that. So I'm gonna imagine that the cost of that is usually going to be about 2 or 3. It's a bit unreliable because you got frostbolt for 2 that does 3 damage. You've got fireball for 4 that does 6. I'm not really sure there's place in a deck for that card. I think that card's probably not going to be that good. 3 mana, Flame Waker, 2/4. After you cast a spell, deal 2 damage randomly split among all enemies. Interesting. Will you be able to protect it? Is the 1 less attack worth it? I'm really not sure. That card could be great, it could be terrible. Depends on the makeup of your deck, depends on your opponents. It's probably going to be really good against things like Hunter. Maybe Paladin's Muster for battle, because Mage doesn't have a way to deal with that at the moment until like turn 6. I don't know. That one could go either way. Paladin, 5 mana, Solemn Vigil. Draw 2 cards, cost 1 less for each minion that died this turn. I really love this card. Combos nicely with the hero power, combos with Muster for battle. And Paladin has card draw at the moment only in the form of Lay on Hands and Hammer of Wrath, and Hammer of Wrath is not very much used, and you usually only run a 1 of Lay on Hands. So I really like this card. I will more than likely try and put that into a deck. So yeah, I'm in favour of Solemn Vigil. Dragon Consort, 5/5 for 5. This is one for the dragon decks. The next dragon you play costs 2 less. Well, of course, this really depends. Like, what sort of decks are we going to be using dragons in? At the moment, the only dragon-specific card is Paladin, Priest. Okay, so Paladin and Priest are going to be the dragon-using classes. So we can go back and review the neutral cards in lieu of that. Paladin and Priest. Okay, so that makes Volcanic Drake a lot more interesting because Okanai Circle, Equality Consecration. You can actually play Volcanic Drake maybe even for free. Paladin and Priest have lots of spells, of course. And they're the buff classes. Power Ward Shield, things like that. Power Ward Shield on Dragon Egg, for example. And Chromagus is going to help with card draw in Paladin and Priest massively as well. And Priest doesn't need more card draw, but Paladin probably does. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so there are a lot of expensive dragons, as you see. The costs are quite high, 665, 8, 9. So I guess Dragon Consort, you're going to have to run 2 of them just to get your dragons out quicker, and rather beautifully, a 5/5 for 5 is quite okay stats, quite decent stats, so we're happy with that. Okay, Priest. Twilight Whelp. A 2/1 1 mana if you're holding a dragon, gain +2 health. Well, that's great. That's a zombie chow without the downside if you're running a dragon priest deck, as long as you have a dragon in your opening hand. Although you've got to wonder what dragons will you have in your opening hand when you're mulliganing everything that costs a lot. Let's just have a look and see what dragons there are in the game at the moment, because I don't remember. Fairy Dragon, Twilight Drake, Azure Drake, Malagos, and Deathwing. And of course, Deathwing is going to be very useful. Deathwing and Malagos are both going to become very useful. Let's see how Malagos and Deathwing are affected by these cards. So it doesn't actually... Obviously now I see the idea of Emperor Thorasan is to reduce the cost of the dragons. And triggers at least once because it does it at the end of your turn, so it's instant cost reduction for all the dragons in your hand, and all the cards in your hand, in fact. And
I wonder if he will be.
My colleague says he wonders if he'll be as annoying in Hearthstone as he is in World of Warcraft. How annoying is he in World of Warcraft?
If you're at the level of the dungeon, he is.
Okay. Well, Jiraxxus was a fairly easy boss in World of Warcraft, as I recall, so... Okay, so we've got the Paladin, and the Paladin, the Dragon Consort, the next dragon you play costs 2 less, means you can play Malagos for 7, as a Drake for 3, which means you can play it on the same turn and still have 2 mana left, and Deathwing for 8. Interesting. You're not going to keep Malagos or Deathwing in your opening hand though, so yeah, Twilight Whelp, I guess you're going to be looking for Fairy Dragon or Azure Drake. Let's move on to the next card. Resurrect. Summon a friendly minion that died this game. A random friendly minion that died this game. Yeah, well that depends what minions you've got in your deck, I suppose, but if they're all dragons, then I guess that's going to be a good card, but outside dragon decks, I guess that's going to be far too inconsistent. But then Priest doesn't have like token generators and stuff, so you're not going to get a token. You'll probably get something decent or something you thought stole. I wonder if it applies to minions that that were friendly but you got them with Thought Steal. I'm sure somebody's going to find out. Gang Up. Choose a minion, shuffle 3 copies of it into your deck. Okay, that's garbage. I don't need to say much more about that, really. Dark Iron Skulker. Yeah, just watch now while all the rogues end up with 4 copies of Ragnaros. I'll be eating my words. Dark Iron Skulker. This was one of the first ones revealed. Battlecry. Deal 2 damage to all undamaged enemy minions. A 4/3 for 5. I think it's too slow and it doesn't have enough health. And I'm guessing there are going to be enemy minions that have more than 2 health by then. Plus the rogue is mostly concerned with doing face damage and it only cares about the board to a limited extent. So I don't think that one is going to be particularly useful. Then we have the Shaman. First we begin with the 4 mana Fireguard Destroyer, which is a 3/6 with Battle Cry of gain 1 to 4 attack, which I assume means at random. Overload 1. That's pretty sick. Worst case scenario, it's going to be a 4/6. Actually, now I think about it, this is extremely interesting, because if it's a 4/6, then it has pretty much decent stats for its mana cost, which we'll say is 5 because of the overload. If it becomes a 4/6, Priest can't remove it. If it becomes a 5/6, it can be Shadow Word Death. If it becomes a 6/6, then it's crazy good stats. And if it becomes a 7/6, it can be BGH'd. So that is actually a fascinating card. I think that card has a very clever random element in it, and I think that card will probably be good, because in the worst case scenario, that card is going to be like, it's going to be a magnet for removal. People are going to be fireballing that and what have you. I think people will be desperate to get that off the board, and the fact you can play it on turn 4 is really nice. Okay, Lava Shock. Deal 2 damage, unlock your overloaded mana crystals. Now, everybody was hyping up this card when it was announced a week or 2 ago. For clarification, Blizzard have said that it unlocks your overloaded mana crystals on the next turn. I think for the cost of 2 mana, it's not worth it. And the 2 damage is not very interesting either when you have things like Lava Bursts and Earth Shock and stuff like that. And Rock Biter weapons. So I think that card is grossly overrated. Warlock. Imp Gang Boss. A 3 mana 2/4. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 1/1 Imp. Interesting for those Implosion token decks and Zoolock, I guess. Whether you're going to want to replace Harvest Golem or Spider Tank with that, I'm not really sure. So I have mixed feelings about that card. That's one of those cards we're just gonna have to try and see how effective it is. Could be good, could suck. It's also a demon, so it will go in demon lock deck. Perhaps people will replace Flame Imp with it, or not replace, but supplement Flame Imp with it. Maybe replace one Implosion or something like that. Not sure. The other card was revealed today. Demon Wrath, 3-mana spell, deal 2 damage to all non-demon minions. The problem with that card is that when you're playing Demon Lock, you've got a lot of non-demon cards anyway, because there aren't that many viable demons, so you're probably going to end up damaging yourself, a bit like Hellfire. That's going to be good against aggro, I guess. I think I'd rather just have the Hellfire, to be honest, because you need 3 damage to get rid of Mech Warper and Snow Chugger and all that kind of stuff. And 2 is not enough. So I think I favour Hellfire over Demon Wrath. This is all just guesswork, of course, and speculation, so it could be completely wrong. Finally, we come to the Warrior. We have the 4-mana 2/5 Axe Flinger. When this minion takes damage, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. That's an interesting one, but the stats are quite weak. I mean, Warrior doesn't really have good 4-drops, but at the moment it's using Piloted Shredder, which is probably a lot better than this, to be fair, as it's more sticky and it has more attack. My colleague just said chill when you had to. Yeah, that hasn't been used really for a while. It's Piloted Shredder is a better card because when you kill it, it summons another minion, so it's harder to deal with. I don't think Axe Flinger is going to be very good, except in these kind of aggro warriors that use Mortal Strike that you don't see very often on ladder, but you see them from time to time. But overall, I think that's a rather meh card. Final card of the class cards is the 2-mana spell Revenge. Deal 1 damage to all minions. If you have 12 or less health, deal 3 damages there. Well, of course, it's a great multi-purpose card because it's like Whirlwind. It will trigger your Armor's Mist, it will trigger your Acolytes of Pain, it will work nicely against aggro to a certain degree. And also, you can play that as a prelude to Execute, of course. If you have 12 or less health, deal 3 damage instead. Bit of a double-edged sword. Could be a finisher. It could trigger Grommash, perhaps, instead of Cruel Task. It's a new way, instead of Cruel Taskmaster, to trigger Grommash if you're running behind. What else would we be using that for? I think I covered most of the bases with it. Let's just go back and review these cards again. I think the ones that will be interesting, just on pure value terms and whether they're applicable in what I expect the meta to be, because like something like Volcanic Lumber would be really good against certain decks, but probably not consistent enough to be used against all for this for its likely cost in the remaining decks. I mean, especially when it can be BGH. So I think the interesting cards here are Quick Shot, which is the deal 3 damage if your hand is empty, draw a card. Possibly Flame Waker, although I'm not sure. Solemn Vigil for sure. Dragon Consort in Dragon decks. Fireguard Destroyer. Maybe Imp Gang Boss. And that is it, I think. Let's see, is there any other? There are some non-collectible cards, but we don't have the images of them yet. The Adventure will not bring any new quests. There are no epic cards. There will be no card changes. The Adventure patch will bring some minor changes to the rest of the game, most notably causing games played on the Naxxramas battlefield to play music from Curse of Naxxramas. The wording on some cards will also be adjusted, such as Ysera's, which will be changed to clarify that she generates a card rather than draws one. Okay. There's a picture of the new battlefield for you. If I could just pull that up. There we go. That's what the new stage is going to look like. Very nice. I still prefer the original one of all. So if you complete Blackrock on heroic mode, you're going to get this card back here. And I think that's pretty much all we need to cover. The rest is lore and stuff. So I will just thank Hearthstone Gamepedia for letting me pilfer their site there. hearthstone.gamepedia.com/Blackrock_Mountain if you want to know more. And that wraps up my quick little review of the Blackrock Mountain cards. Don't forget to tune in on Twitch, www.twitch.tv/DJKT, or check out my website, katyhearthstone.com. Thanks for watching.